we're really excited to bring this panel to you today. The idea for it came actually some time ago. For years at Mckinley, we've done research and we've seen a really interesting trend, but honestly, I think it's not surprising that members place a lot of their value from an organization at the local level. And with all of COVID-19 that's happening, and anyone who's read about meetings and the trends that are likely to happen there, or has looked at legislation and how rules and regulations have changed at the federal level, there's really a push down to local. And we thought it would be really interesting to hear from our colleagues about what it's like to be at that local level, or to be in a national organization where local really plays a very big part in delivering value to members. So thanks for joining us today. A quick overview of Mckinley. So we're a consulting firm and we focus in 4 areas: strategy, research, business transformation, which is really relevant at this particular point in time, and also marketing. We've been around for over 25 years and we have an office in DC. We have one in Chicago too, and we have some of our Chicago colleagues here on the webinar today. A couple of logistical things. So you are all muted, but the chat function is live. Please, if you've got any comments that you want to share with the panelists or you want to talk with each other, go ahead and use that chat feature. We're also going to take questions through chat. So we can take them as we go, but we'll also preserve some time at the end, 15 minutes, so that you can ask any questions you would like of us, and we'll be happy to answer that. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michelle, who's going to introduce herself.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks so much for having me today. I am Michelle Mason, President and CEO of Association Forum, located in Chicago. We're the Association for Associations in the Chicagoland area. We have been around for about 104 years. I have not been around for 104 years, but the organization has been. And we have over 4,000 members representing over 1,700 organizations in this space. And so I'm very excited to be here today to share with you what we're doing at a regional and local level.
Kevin?
Perfect. Hello and good afternoon. I'm Kevin Watkins. I'm the Senior Vice President of Affiliate and Member Engagement at the National Apartment Association. We're based in the DC area. And so we are the trade association for apartment owners, developers, and also suppliers. We represent over 10 million apartment units worldwide. And we have 150 domestic affiliates and 1 global affiliate. Happy to be here with you today.
Thanks, Kevin. Wendy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Kavanaugh. I'm with the Georgia Society of Association Executives. We are much smaller than Forum. We have about 550, give or take, members throughout the state of Georgia, as well as the Southeast. We serve both a corporate supplier population as well as our core audience of association executives. And one of the mantras we use is helping people be better at their jobs. So I'm excited to hear from Michelle and Shelley and Kevin today, along with the rest of you, and look forward to participating. Thanks.
Great. I mentioned before that we've seen in research that the local experience is really valuable to members and other stakeholders. And of course, in this time where people aren't able to travel, they'll probably slowly get back, and that local experience will be really important to them. I'm curious, the panelists, what do you believe makes the local experience so unique and so valuable?
I'll chime in. So when I think about our affiliates, the 150 domestic affiliates, I think they're best positioned to provide the on-the-ground information, the information that really helps the rank and file member operate their business better. I think as the National Association, we do a great job of providing broad content, but those locals, they're providing the very specific content. So for instance, with apartment communities located all across the US, there are so many different regulations about reopening. And so NAA, we would not be effective in understanding and also explaining all of those regulations. So the local affiliate has been best positioned to do that, and they've done that just so well during this time. I also think, you know, the local association, that's where people get involved. So when I think about the apartment industry, when I think of the rank and file member, I think of a leasing professional, I think of a maintenance technician. And the ways to get involved with this federation is at the local level. And so I think our locals do the best job of engaging the rank and file member as folks grow in their tenure, as folks grow in their involvement with this association or with this network. They then become involved at the state and national level. But, you know, the true leaders are really formed at the local level.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Kevin. It is a great entry point, particularly when you're early in your career for new careerists to start in association forum, just getting involved, understanding what an association is and how they make strong contributions to society, and then growing from here into other leadership or leadership aspirations nationally. But I will also say for us, one of our main benefits to members is our community. There's a strong community feel within Association Forum, a lot of camaraderie. And that's where many of the relationships, lifelong relationships that are established, or friendships throughout your professional career in association management. Also at the local level, there's a special DNA. There's a special characteristic. We call it a welcoming environment here in Chicago, which is one of our core values, where there's a place of belonging, a place of connection. So wherever you decide to transition to professionally or just organizationally, career-wise, you know you have a home, a hub, a peer group here within the forum community.
You know, I will.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I springboarding off of what Michelle is saying, I think that for us, it becomes, how do we develop a non-competitive, nurturing local community that again, you're not in a situation of trying to compete with people for resources or information or jobs. We really stress creating those personal connections that can, you know, help you succeed, but also pick you up when you do fail.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I was also going to add, Mckinley, Shelley didn't ask me to plug this, but Mckinley did a research project for us, and we asked members at what level of our federation do you feel the most connected? Which level is the most valuable to you? And the results did not surprise us. The rank and file member values that local relationship the most because that's where they're involved for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so we've been really strategic and also intentional here on how do we prop up the locals so that they can provide a better experience, so that they can provide better and more opportunities as well. So, you know, the local affiliate is just so important.
Yeah, and I think the local experience is becoming increasingly important, to Kevin's point, now that we're in the midst of what I call, and most are saying, 3 pandemics. You have social, health, and economic. And so there's a huge trepidation, fear out there for travel. We have inconsistent at best guidelines related to gathering. And so I believe that the local experience, the regional experiences that you have could fill that void over the next 12, 18, 24 months. But as a nation, we're trying to figure out what's the next step to gathering.
I looked at the registration list. Again, thank you all who've joined. I think some of you are coming from national organizations. Maybe you play a role in, like Kevin does, in supporting affiliates or chapters. And then it looked like some of you come from those state societies. I wonder, Michelle, for you in particular, and then Kevin, you kind of have a different perspective on this. Michelle, I'm thinking about the forum and how you've taken on some really ambitious initiatives that are really on the national level, could serve a national audience. And Kevin, you have some very large affiliates that compete with a smaller national association. And I just wonder if, how you see value in terms of some of those initiatives that might go beyond that local community. And do you think that there's an opportunity there or real value there? Just any comments you have on that?
Sure. We're in a unique space in that more than 85% of our membership has a national or international scope. So for us, it is our responsibility to put a local face on national issues, if you will, to maintain a level of relevancy. And most importantly, over the past several months, we've increased our advocacy efforts because we recognize that a vast majority of our membership consists of 501c6 organizations. And as we know, through the federal stimulus packages, they were omitted. And so it was our responsibility to collaborate with organizations like ASAE and ISAE, which is the Illinois Society for Association Executives, more in a coalition model so that we can represent our members. But also as it relates to race relations, these are their questions and their conversations that are happening at the national, international level. And so it's very important for us, again, to put a local voice on national issues. And we do that through a variety of ways. One is to engage our members in conversations so we can fundamentally understand how these the opportunities for racial healing is playing or unfolding in our society, or can taking place in the organizations. And we know because of the diversity of our membership, we need to convene our members to have those critical conversations. We also recognize from a regional, local perspective, it's important that our members have access to our leaders so that they can understand our elected leaders, what's happening in our communities. And again, obviously collaborating with ASAE and other national organizations to understand how to impact changes at a national level. So it's really multifaceted for us, and it's a part of our obviously mission to bring a variety of perspectives to our membership.
Yeah, I think for us, that collaboration approach is the way that we try to go about that. So our affiliate network, as Shelley said, we have some very large affiliates that are doing some great things, that have innovative programs, that are doing very out of the box things. And we also like to think that we're doing a lot of those things too, and so what our approach is, we try to collaborate on just everything. We try our best to work with our affiliate network to leverage programs, to see how we can work together to implement programs all throughout the nation. We also have we have a long history of providing a revenue share for almost everything that we do. And so, we're very intent on making sure that we support the affiliates, but they also have room to operate their own unique programs as well. One of the things that we're really trying to focus on over the next few years is how do we incent affiliates to create new innovative programs that can then be implemented across the network. That's something that we haven't quite figured out just yet, but we've talked about having some sort of innovation fund so that affiliates do have an opportunity to get seed funding for new projects that we can then help them on, and then hopefully replicate across the nation.
Wendy, you would like to share something?
I was just gonna, again, talking about that coalition building and the collaboration, again, being a small state-based organization, our reach is very large across the Southeast though. And so for us, it's being able to galvanize our members to give us information that's been curated and vetted and push that back out. For us, being in Georgia, reopening procedures have been huge. Our hotels and CVBs have been giving us a lot of great information about the safety measures that are going into place, and taking the politics out of it for us. Being again that source of information that we can help our folks manage these crises, these problems, and overcome them. So I think that the locals, again, echoing what Kevin said, we're on the ground, we're boots on the ground, we're seeing what's happening in our communities. And because GSA is a hub of information gathering, we're able to gather all of those different perspectives and different areas of expertise to put them in one place so that our folks aren't Googling everything.
You know, I want to build on what Wendy just said. We also look at ourselves as a convener. And let me give you an example of what that means, because, you know, again, we're a regional local organization. It's very important that we have that voice on national issues. We've convened a public policy advisory council, and representative on that council, we have ASAE and ISAE, and that's an example of coalition building, working towards a common goal, a common objective. And at the local level, we can facilitate that more agilely, in some cases faster than national and international organizations. So that is a value add for our type organizations.
I'm going to assume optimistically that these efforts that you've all been talking about has attracted maybe some new participants, non-members, maybe former members. And I know a lot of associations are really thinking about, you know, what to put behind the paywall, what to provide as public access, and then how to maintain a relationship with someone, or let's be honest, even get them to register for something or actually join as members. Any trends you're seeing around that, or advice you have around how to nurture a relationship with someone who's not a member today?
All right, so I'll go. All right, so Wendy, you go ahead. Go ahead, Wendy, you go first.
No, go.
Ah!
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, we haven't quite figured that part out. You know, something that we recognize that we need to figure out, just due to the complex way that this business operates or this industry operates. It makes it somewhat difficult, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to try or that we don't need to implement something. So that's something that we're currently exploring. You know, how do we really manage that non-member relationship? We know who the non-members are, and we have great products and services for them, but there's something more than that, though.
Well, we definitely embrace the non-member, and we are excited that they are part of our community, because that's also a pipeline into membership for us. Sometimes that cultivation period might be longer, but it's an opportunity to get them in, engage with our community. Again, our membership here, one of the highest rated benefits is the community that we have here in Chicago. And so once they experience that, they'll be the consumers of our products and services. And so, you know, after a couple of years, we hope to continue to retain them, but we see it as a huge opportunity. But we also are trying to understand, what does membership look like in the future? Is it really about paid membership, or is it about community? And as we look at our business models moving forward, I think that's something we'll need to have conversations about, particularly now that we're in this virtual space. So it's an opportunity to innovate, I would say.
I agree with Michelle that we look at our prospects and folks who engage with us in a variety of ways as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But we are very different, I think, than some organizations. A lot of our resources, samples, forms, documents, those aren't behind a paywall. We take very seriously the health of our community, and the health of our community means effective practices across the board. So we don't paywall a lot, but the things that we do paywall are the community aspects of it, the personal one-on-one connections that we're helping folks build, and those opportunities to create those personal relationships. So we're really selling the connection and the peer-to-peer opportunity and the access to your colleagues' expertise as our kind of hook. But from a purely informational standpoint, I don't care if you're a prospect and a member of the association community in Georgia and you have a question about bylaws and samples at 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep. I want you to be able to get to it. I don't want you to have to go through a gatekeeper system. So that's building goodwill for us. So yeah. And if you don't do it, I'd recommend just looking at opening a few things up.
Yeah.
that's been our approach as well. The last few months, we've been cranking out content. And so we've had, I think we've recorded over 70 webinars, with some approaching about 3,500 people attending. And none of that is behind a paywall. We made a decision early on that, we are here to support the industry regardless of membership status. And so we decided to keep all that stuff free access. Non-members can access it at any time because it helps the industry. And so that's been our overall approach.
Yeah, and that's the value that associations bring now more than ever to society, our content, our credible content sources. And so when we had to pivot in March from a physical organization to a virtual organization, we converted all of our in-person engagements to virtual, and allowed free access, because it is our responsibility now to provide information and resources, whether you're a member or a non-member or a prospect, to navigate these uncertain times. That builds value proposition, not just for Association Forum, but for the sector in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just thinking about careers too. And I remember in the Great Recession how a lot of associations pivoted pretty heavily to emphasize their career support resources. And I feel like, that term networking, which is a turnoff for some people, it's just a really amorphous concept for other people. But at the end of the day, it's what we all turn to when we're faced with, the potential of losing a job or wanting to look for a new opportunity too. Have any of you emphasized career resources as part of your COVID-19 support package?
For GSAE, I can say that we've created a COVID-19 membership category for now, that literally is capturing our furloughed and laid off members. Sadly, mostly in the hospitality and CVB side of our membership, but that's just the first step in our mind. And the next step is keeping them engaged so that they do have those access to resources, but also one another, because we know for a fact you're finding jobs, particularly from the Great Recession. We know what happened then, that you're finding jobs based on your personal networking opportunities and outreach. And so us helping them maintain those connections and not getting kicked out of the system because their work email has been turned off. And so again, for us, it's building goodwill, it's keeping that credibility in line, and also continuing to maintain their access when it's through no fault of their own, that maybe their corporate membership has changed. So that's, for us, next steps is going to be, how are we continuing to put those career opportunities? Because frankly, right now, our job boards are all pretty slim. So it does become, what information do we have to create that foundation of, let's go back to basics a little bit. Do you need to touch base with somebody about reading over your resume? I know 5 people who are great resume readers. Let us connect you with those folks as you go through this updating process. And those are the most extreme situations, but I do think it's important for all of us on the local level to keep our commitments to our members to help them be successful in their profession.
Absolutely. Yeah, and doesn't not what Wendy is sharing, we too support our members in that capacity. We're doing a few additional things. One, we've partnered with Goodwill, Southeastern Wisconsin and Chicago Workforce Connections Center. Talent Bridge actually is the name of the entity, and they provide career placement services as well as recruitment services, and it's a nonprofit organization. And so they provide additional support around building your resume and the tools and resources to be effective in the current job market. We are, the majority of our partnerships are with the hospitality and tourism industry, and we understand that those industries are just being impacted significantly through furlough and layoffs, right? And so what we have now implemented is a program to help our partners who are in transition through complimentary membership. We want to keep them engaged in our community. We want to support them, and we want to be that network for them. So we're really focused on that. And to Wendy's point, the engagement piece now is more important than ever before, because people always remember where you are, or how the level of support you provided them when they were in need, right? And so a third thing that we're doing is we are launching, or have launched, an internship program to introduce underrepresented communities, particularly the Black and Latinx communities, into association management. So we have partnered with a local university. Actually, it's not local, it's national. It's called National Louis University. And so we are focused on building that pipeline of talent, so that when we recover from this, we will have a great story to tell around inclusion and a new talent that will help to lead us into the future.
And for us, we quickly started to focus on how can we offer more education. So when we think about our friends, all of our friends in the hotel and lodging space, that's a parallel to rental housing, actually. And so as we thought about those front desk agents that have been laid off, as we think about those maintenance engineers that have been laid off, we started offering more education for leasing and also for apartment maintenance careers, because those are parallels. And so we've been helping our locals do more education during this. One thing that Michelle said about supporting your members, I hear best practices from our local affiliates all of the time. And two of our affiliates in Florida, our supplier members are really hurting. They've had to change the way that they do business, less sales, and so a ton of layoffs for our supplier members. And so two affiliates in Florida took that same approach. Like, your employment status with these companies, that doesn't matter, still be a part of this association. They also created a fund to support laid off folks, and it was really special and very unique for our network. And I know that's happening in several places outside of Florida as well within our network. But I just thought that was a really cool example of supporting members, keeping them involved, understanding that this is a process, this is a cycle, and they'll cycle back in and they'll be involved. And as Michelle said, they will remember this.
Yeah, and that's important to remember, exactly what Kevin is saying. They will remember the education piece is important and the engagement piece is important. And, we'll get through this. I mean, we've gone through a recession before, right? We've recovered. So we'll get through this, but and hopefully the support that we provide them will be memorable.
I'm going to state the obvious here, but for those of you who are launching any kind of powerful, highly responsive initiatives like this, don't forget to tell the story about that. At Mckinley, if any of you are members of PCMA, you might have seen an email they sent recently, and it was just a really fantastic note to members about the future of the profession, and just really rapidly and succinctly laid out all of the resources they had developed for members. But it also brought in some of that emotional component too, like, we're really community and we're gonna make it through this. So don't forget to capture that and assume that your members might not remember, and tell your story really well. There's so much happening. So Michelle, you mentioned it, like we have kind of the three major just societal challenges that everybody is facing right now. I wonder if you step back from what it was right in front of us right now, how do you balance responding to those immediate crises and a real long-term vision for the organization, and thinking about how your organization can really impact your local community or impact society at large?
Yeah, I mean, it is a balance, and it is, I don't know how to respond to how do you balance. It's just the right thing to do, because you have the short-term immediate need, but you also have the long-term survivability of the organization. And everything is I call this a forgiveness year, right? Because a blank sheet of paper for us. It's a year where we take risk. It's a year for us to truly be innovative. And if we fail fast, learn from it, and bring those learnings into next year. Because things will be in flux until there is a vaccine or until there's confidence that we can truly reopen as a nation. And so there's a need for us to balance how to be responsive to the current issues that we need to provide education and conversation around for our members, right? That impacts our relevancy. But also, how do we model the way as it relates to, like Wendy's comment, a measured approach to reopening? Because for us, our members look at us to be the to be the risk takers. We take risk on their behalf so that they can learn from it. And that's part of the reason why they invest in us. So we have to be measured and we have to be responsive, but we're also businesses too. And we have to think about this from a fiduciary responsibility and maintaining our survivability through scenario planning. Look at what if scenarios that either will impact us, but also can impact our members long term. So I think in summary, I think it's a multifaceted approach. I think it's a difficult balance. And it's a challenge now because everything is so new and everything is in flux. And it's just so hard to answer that question. We thought before March we had the perfect plan. Well, the reality is we don't. And so we're writing the playbook while we're playing the game is what I share with the team on a regular basis. So maybe I have a more exact answer for you next year after we get after we get through the after we get through the true second wave. Because look at what we're learning this week, which is really, setting some organizations back. So it's really hard for me to answer that question. And my friends, Wendy and Kevin, might have a better response than I do, but unfortunately, it's the best I got for you.
I think playing off of what Michelle said, truly for the SAE community in Georgia and amongst my peers in the Southeast, our members rely on us to take the risk and fail or succeed, and then tell them how we did it and what we learned from it. That's been one of the most and we did this pre-pandemic when we experimented with something. Not only did we do the program or produce the product, but we gave them supporting documents. How did we decide to do this? What steps did we go through? I'm very fortunate to work for a non-risk averse board, but we don't take stupid risks either. They expect myself and my team to be smart about it and to get the information that we need in order to be successful. But sometimes we fail, and I have several failures to talk about in the next segment. But again, even in the pandemic, when we've done a program, our April luncheon, back to forward, the video tells you step by step how we did it, how we did the breakout rooms, how we utilize Zoom, and the things that we'll do different next time. So I can't even emphasize enough that when you're local and perhaps more nimble, that you have a responsibility to take those risks on behalf of your members and to experiment and then to tell them what you learned. That's just such a critical piece of it.
Yeah, sharing that story, going back to what you were saying earlier, Shelley, and in addition to that, board support is critical. Like Wendy, Association Forum Board is very much focused on being a leading example for our members to learn from, being that effective practice, taking the risk now so that our members can learn, understand, and then also, celebrate the failures in some respects, because sometimes that's the greatest value and the greatest learning, and that's the local value and the agility and the flexibility we have at that level. That's where we can be that incubator.
So one of the things that we did, we wanted to make sure that our 150 local affiliates, that they weren't out there having to make up answers on their own, since we're all dealing with the same issues, or at least very similar issues. And so we started, or we were very intentional on getting all of the association executives together at first weekly, and they were sharing best practices, they were sharing challenges, they were sharing templates, and that really created a lot of momentum for them to collectively solve big problems, and to share important information. And as the National Association, we were at the seat learning as well. I mean, as all of you have done the last few months, you've scenario planned for everything. And so, as we heard the locals going through their process of scenario planning, we were learning things that, hey, we needed to think about that as well. And so it's been really fun, really awesome, really exciting to see just the synergy that has been created throughout our network right now.
As we're talking, I'm thinking, I wonder if the line between local, national, global is becoming blurred, right? And so, there's this, how we're articulating this probably evolves, just like our business models are evolving over time. So that's just something for us to think about throughout this pandemic, throughout this whole process that we're going through. Just like we're rethinking our old traditional thinking, we probably will be rethinking how we view ourselves moving forward into the future. And maybe it's just one community.
And one more thing too, I'm sorry, I think we all need to use this year, as Michelle said, I think you said the practice year.
Forgiveness year.
Or the forgiveness year, because it really is that. I was having a conversation with the team of my staff today, and we were talking about several sacred cows that we have throughout our division of this association. And, this is the year to look at those sacred cows. This is the year to say, hey, we want to make a bold change. We want to make a bold decision. And get your leadership on board, explain to them why, but ultimately get them on board. And we're looking forward to doing that with a few sacred cows, because I do think the association, it is going to change. We are going to look different in 21, in 22. This isn't just a one-year thing, and I think we've got to look at all of the things that we do and make sure that they're core competencies of the association and that we can do them well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because if you think about our metrics have changed. At least for us, we can't compare ourselves to last year. This is an anomaly year. We cannot do that. So this is a year where we are setting a baseline for the future, right? And so we should rethink and look at everything that we're doing, and even the value proposition that we are delivering or will be required to deliver in the future, particularly the impact that digital is having on our organizations, which has totally transformed how we are able to deliver education. We entered the office one day, and then the next day we're totally virtual. It didn't have time to think about it. But if we can do that, what else, right? So that gives us confidence, and it gives us license to be bolder.
I am going to give the Mckinley shout out, because those impact surveys that have been in waves have been remarkably helpful to somebody like me who maybe is not talking to my members. I certainly have surveys that we've done and kind of pulse surveys saying, what do you think? The next round is going to have to be, if this becomes the forgiveness year, what do you need next to get back on your feet, to pivot in the way that you need to pivot to serve your members and your industries and your professions? And so I think it is a continuum of talking and listening and getting that feedback. So again, shout out to Mckinley, because I've been looking and it's been invaluable, again, to us to understand that maybe some of the folks that we haven't reached yet, in the prospect field or in that member that's not as engaged with us, being able to read the landscape, I think is just critical going forward. You've got to have that feedback mechanism in place for us to continue to evolve and remain relevant.
Thanks for the plug, Wendy. Everyone can access that, so we'll make sure and include a link. And by the way, we We love when we get suggestions for questions to ask each week. So when you see it, if something comes to mind for all of you. I'm going to go back to this whole idea of risk and even failure. So I consider all of you to be real thought leaders and risk takers and innovators. And what have you learned? What cautions do you have about taking risks for our participants?
All right, Wendy.
No, Wendy has some.
Wendy's
Shelley,
anxious.
I know, right? Just throw it all out there. My members that are on this call are laughing right now. They're like, "Go, Wendy." Do you want to start with the successes or the failures? Because I
both.
Okay.
Let's hear both. Yeah, whichever order.
So for us, and Kevin, you in particular will appreciate this. We actually had an initiative a couple of years ago around hyperlocal, because we are state-based, and the vast majority of our association executives are based in the metro area, and if you go 13 counties, metro Atlanta, but we absolutely have association management companies that operate in Savannah, Augusta, LaGrange. And we also have that wide swath across the southeast of our corporate supplier members. So we had this fabulous idea that came out about hyperlocal meetings, and we were going to use a mapping service and use Google. And I got to tell you, people were just not interested. They wanted to go where the largest number of people were meeting. We absolutely did have success with some CEO-based groups or some job-based groups that folks would get together and we would provide a structure as opposed to all of the logistics. We kind of gave them guided discussions, and so that was a successful piece. But my corporate supplier members had no interest in going to Columbus and sitting with a bunch of other corporate supplier members, and so it changed.
Would you do anything differently, Wendy, looking back on that?
I think that for us, we misread the room a little bit, and that's a hard thing to say. It was something that came out of one of our leadership retreats, and we realized that we were probably listening to voices that thought there was a deficit there, but they weren't directly involved. You know, it's one of those brainstorming sessions and again, for us, it didn't cost us anything except staff time and volunteer time to try it out and to give it a shot. And we did have these pockets of success of cohorts that grew and developed organically out of that. And so that piece of it was successful of a model for folks that are interested in it. But, you know, going back to for people who aren't involved in local or aren't involved in components and chapters, I would say you have to have a passionate volunteer that's leading you on the ground if you're not there yourself, or a problem to solve or an issue to rally around. You have to have an impetus if you're not in that space already. And for us, some areas had an impetus and others were like, yeah, I don't care. And you have to respect that sometimes they just don't care. I mean, the whole build the ball field and they'll come, you know, sometimes it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. You know, I view risk and failure, particularly this year now more than ever, as an opportunity. Like, Wendy, you learned from that. It's an opportunity to learn. And I think now as we start to rethink again our business models, because we don't really have a choice, we are all entrepreneurs. We're all startups, if you will. And so we will need to take more risk and we will fail because we need to rethink those traditional norms. And we're building new effective practices. So I think it'll be cultural. And I think as we move forward and we look at the organization of the future, we'll need to think about that when we're hiring new talent. So we'll think about that as we're bringing on, you know, as we look at our governance structures. And I don't believe that that's going to change. And we're continuing to learn as we go along, and we're learning something new every day. So in addition to this being a forgiveness year, it also is a learning year. It's a learning community. Like even on this call, learning from Kevin and Wendy and taking some of their practices or their insights into my organizational strategies and structures, and kind of think, what can I learn from this? And sharing with my team is going to be extremely important. So as we look at not only engaging our memberships, we need to be thinking internally within our organization and bettering ourselves as leaders as well.
I would repeat everything that you both said. I think this is the year to try new things, and this is the year to rethink what you look like in the future. One of the things that we've been very intentional about here is how are we evaluating the business, since there's not a lot of good data right now. But we've taken the approach, any data is good data, and so we're looking at everything that we do and trying to translate that to last year, 2019, whatever. We're really trying our best to find any data, because we are startups now. That's something that startups do. They try to find data, and so we've taken that approach.
Yeah, evidence-based decision making would be key.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, create it.
Yeah, there's a great book called
Hire Mckinley.
There's a great book called How to Measure Anything.
Yeah.
And it's a great book because you really can't measure anything. You just have to think about it. Yeah.
And that's a good point, Kevin, because the performance indicators will change too. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they'll look like. The dashboards, all that we were measuring ourselves against last year and the previous years, that will evolve over time because we know that our footprints are getting smaller, right? So we just need to understand what that means. So the year of learning and questioning is now, so that you can establish the baseline and build from here to the future.
Oh, there we have it. Thank you, Wendy. The name of Kevin's book, which is a good segue into questions. So do our participants have any questions for the panelists? I'm going to monitor this here. Go ahead. Just a reminder, just type your question or comment into the chat feature. While we're waiting to see if any questions come up, I do want to ask you, and I know that you all have moved into organizations that already had a local presence, but I'm wondering if you have any advice for a national or global association that recognizes a point you made, Michelle, like these lines are getting really blurry. Like if we don't have a presence at the local level, then we run the risk of not being able to deliver value. And of course, that's really overwhelming given that there are so many states and regions. Do you have any advice for how a national global association could start to explore local or build local without, obviously making an enormous investment or overpromising?
As I mentioned earlier, we're all about partnerships and collaboration at Association Forum. So I think the national global organizations should first ask the question, what need are we trying to fill first? And is that need a void in that local community? And if it is, who are your logical partners? I think that's the first starting point, particularly now when time's at a premium, resources. I mean, there's just so many considerations. That would be my first recommendation. Before, and then also everything should be data driven, right? Just making evidence-based decisions. Just because you believe it's a good idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. If you build it, will they come? There are all sorts of questions organizationally and internally you need to answer prior to establishing that. And then the last thing I'll say on this topic is that, we are virtual organizations now. Right? So digital, virtual, I mean, obviously that is an opportunity or a way to establish a presence through online communities, voice of the customer, voice of the members, very important before you establish a physical presence.
So we partnered. So a few years ago, we did not have an affiliate in the state of Idaho, and we recognized that we needed one, but we also recognized that the National Association, our wheelhouse is running a national association, not a local association. And so we partnered with our affiliate in Utah, actually, to establish an affiliate. We both worked together to make that affiliate open and help it be successful. And years later, it's growing like crazy. They're operating great programs. They have great advocacy campaigns. So, I think leveraging your current resources, if that's affiliates or if that's members that are clustered in one area, use them to create that informal group and watch that informal group grow.
Wendy, I know you wanted to make a comment, but we've gotten a couple questions. I want to make sure we just have time for that.
I was going to say exactly what Kevin said.
Well, there you go.
Collaborate, partner,
Yeah.
don't use all your own resources. Exactly.
Very good. So Sarah has a question. If you are currently not offering any of your content behind a paywall, are any of you considering that in the future to help with revenue streams? And Wendy, I know this might be a question for you because you were the one who was adamant, not behind the paywall.
Well, and again, it's our samples, documents, forms, things like that are not behind a paywall. We have a resource page. We also link back to several other SAEs in the area, ASAE, things like that. We're giving information, and so it's curated, and that's part of the value that we're bringing to the table. But the connectivity piece is behind a payroll because you can't find somebody with areas of expertise or similar interests out on our website, where our membership directory has places where you can search of who knows about financial management, and goodness knows we are all going to need a budgeting update of some sort going forward, because this ain't nothing like what we've seen before. But again, so that connectivity is behind paywall and is part of the membership structure. But information and resources, again, goodwill gesture for us. So we're already split that way.
And same, we've taken that same approach. While some of the new content is not behind a paywall, there's still plenty of information that is, and there are only certain capabilities in front of that paywall. So we've certainly thought through moving things behind a paywall or even charging for things, but we just kind of consider that to be a radical shift in how we operate, and so we're moving cautiously towards that.
Yeah, it's the same for us.
Craig has a question. How do you encourage feedback from your organization's members? We want to know what they want so we can focus accordingly, but the bulk of our local chapters I started reading another question, but the bulk of our members are a silent majority.
We solicit feedback from members through what we call we're titled conversation circles. So we have online webinar conversations with our members. We solicit feedback through obviously surveys, assessments from members. And then, and then we use the opportunity during the member renewal process. When we see a slowing within our member renewal process, we personally outreach, and we use that as an opportunity to connect with members, ask questions, remind them of our upcoming events, and then just overall the value proposition that we have here in the regional community.
Wendy, Anna wants to know what software system you use.
We have fields within our AMS. And we have made those searchable on our online membership directory, and it's pull downs, and everything in the kitchen sink, because association management is a very broad profession, and for some things we do follow the CAE domains. Yay us! Apparently we get to update that before December when the new test comes out. But yeah, so for us it's a searchable attribute, so to speak, and we can run reports, and then we have our shared interest groups that are also mirror that, so that we can use two different ways: people that are self-selecting as part of their membership profile, but also people who have a demonstrated interest in that area. So we have two different connection points that we can use.
And what is your AMS? Did you mention this?
We use MemberClicks,
Okay.
which is Atlanta-based,
Wonderful.
and they're
It's
fabulous.
local.
Love to talk to you offline.
Shameless plug.
She opened the door.
She sure did. You went
She
through
did.
I did. I'm a good partner.
Look, that's a Wendy move.
Poor Kevin.
Panelists, any parting thoughts for our participants?
I will just reiterate, it's a forgiveness year. And so,
I think that's great.
yeah, we're all startups. Own it. Seize the moment. Carpe diem.
Yeah, and that we need to have that mentality
Yep.
Ourselves, but also within our organizations too. And
Absolutely.
maybe
Yeah.
the individual perspectives may be the most important right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's same. I think this is the year to go big, and so I think go big, think big. Try to do as big of a things that your budget allows, and then check in with all of your stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've tried our best to do the last few months, from our rank and file member to our affiliates to our supplier partners. Check in with all of your stakeholders. They're all going through something different right now, and I think it's good for the association to understand that and try to change itself to respond to those new challenges.
Mm-hmm.
My closing goes back to rely on your own peers right now. For those of you that belong to a local, regional, or state SAE, if you're involved with ASAE, I encourage you to reach out to the people that are experiencing the same kind of things that Michelle and I both really benefit from the state, local, regional Society of Association Executives. Because if you don't think we live in a weird world, you are so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Kevin also for National Apartment Association, several of my members are very involved with their executive group. CES is an example. And so as you are facing these issues, I encourage you to make sure you have your own personal board of directors, your own kitchen cabinet of peers. And again, SAEs will help you create those if you don't have one.
That's great. Thank you all so much. We talked about data and analytics, and so I'll do a plug that Mckinley is going to be producing a study on data and analytics trends in associations. We're really excited to release this. It doesn't really exist out there today. We're doing that in partnership with A2, so keep a lookout for that. And we also have some other resources around where associations are probably going to be shifting, what they need to focus on in 2021. That will be coming out soon too, but we'll follow up with some resources. Wendy mentioned the tracker. We'll make sure and include that. And of course, reach out anytime if you have questions for us at Mckinley, or if you want to get in touch with the panelists, we're happy to route your questions to them. But thank you all for joining us today. Wendy, Kevin, Michelle, thanks for a really stimulating, thought-provoking conversation. It's always great to see you.